back to March 23rd, 2021. What did you first notice in Amara that made you realize something was not right?
When she was 17 months old, that was essentially the video that we took when we first noticed something was not right. So,
is your leg hurting? Yeah. Angie asked, oh, yeah. What's Angie doing? Okay, watch out. But she's very, she's not as confident.
No, she's not. She's uncoordinated, which is not what she
She's very clumsy. Where are you, Bubby? What you doing? Who do you want? What do you want? You want out in an outfit? What do you want from there? Or you want to do your hair? Orange. Can you go see what other colors are in the box? Want to stand up? Yeah. Yeah, do you hear some sounds outside? Is that construction? Can you stand up one more time? No? Yeah, what do you see there? Oh, are you digging in there like a cat?
well, first her legs started to shake like that in the video, and then she stopped wanting to stand up and sit down because she started to feel weak. Then her arms started to shake. We went to the hospital. They said, we're not sure what this is. They did a bunch of tests. They did like a pelvic x-ray, sent us back home. It kept getting worse. Now it was like both sides, and she was not able to really walk straight. Went back to the hospital, stayed for about a week. They did an ECG, and they did an MRI of her brain. Didn't find anything. They did a spinal tap. Didn't find anything. And they said probably what this is acute cereballitis or acute cerebellar ataxia. Just go back home and wait, and it'll get better. And she didn't get better. So we came home. She stopped walking. She couldn't even sit anymore. She couldn't eat. She could only eat like baby cereal. She couldn't talk anymore. And she was just not herself. Like she was very, like some of my other videos that I've shared, you can tell like her eyes are all erratic. She's just like kind of very limp. So when she wasn't able to eat, we said, okay, this is not getting better. So we went back to the hospital.
What is Amara's diagnosis?
And then we happened to find a neurologist who had studied in Japan and had recognized that this was Opsoclonus-Myoclonus syndrome. And so they treated us right away with immune suppression, did some tests, and then said, we need to check for a tumor because most likely this is because of a neuroblastoma. And so they checked, they did another MRI, they did a CAT scan, they did an ultrasound. I mean, we never found a tumor at that time. And then finally they did one more test. They did a MIBG, which is essentially like a nuclear radioactive isotope. And that showed a tumor behind her liver. So then within a few days, they had surgery for the tumor. When they went in, they saw that there was actually like a secondary tumor. There were two tumors. They took it out. Luckily, they were able to resect it fully. She was diagnosed with intermediate risk neuroblastoma. So they had to monitor her every 3 months. Luckily, we didn't need radiation. We didn't need chemotherapy. So she just got basically a cocktail of IVIG, dexamethasone, and rituximab to kill off her B cells every month for 3 years. And then after that, we started to slowly wean off of it. And then she was okay. But we also had to do physical therapy, speech therapy, all those types of things to get her back. And And then within a few months, she started to like slowly start to crawl again and started to climb, and then eventually she was walking again. So yeah, it was a long journey, but and it's so rare. It's so rare. Like it's 1 in 10 million people around the world and children. It affects children a lot. And a lot of times it doesn't get diagnosed because people don't know what it is. Like we got the wrong diagnosis at the beginning. A lot of families that I've spoken to, they get the wrong diagnosis as well. And so they just wait. And the sooner we can treat, the better the outcomes. So it's a little sad that there's so many families that don't get diagnosed as quickly, but more and more now, because of all this awareness and social media, I feel like people are starting to. I mean, we didn't know what it was. We were looking on social media too, and we found a video that another family had posted. And I told my husband, like, hey, I think this is it. This is what it looks like, and it might be the same thing that our daughter has. So we already kind of knew what it might be when we went to the hospital. So when the doctor said, "Oh yeah, I think that's what it is," we already kind of knew that that was what it was going to be. So yeah,
Amara developed abnormal eye movements, severe sleep problems, irritability, difficulty sitting, and difficulty swallowing. What was it like watching that progression happen so quickly?
very hard. I mean, for about 2 weeks, maybe a bit over 2 weeks, we had no idea what was happening, and she was deteriorating very fast. Like within a month, she was just like this newborn baby again that couldn't, but with no personality. Like she couldn't really, I don't know how to describe it other than she just seemed very, um, yeah, just like we lost our baby, you know? So it was very hard to see her. She was just such a happy baby, bubbly baby. I've even posted some videos of what she was like before she got sick, and just the contrast was very, very hard because we didn't know if this was something that was like genetic and then this is it, like our baby's done, like we will never see her walk again. We had no idea. And then when the doctors kept us for a week and did all these tests, and they tested for viral infections and so many different things, everything came back negative. Every MRI came back negative. Every lumbar, like every spinal tap came back negative, and we just didn't know if we would ever get a diagnosis, and so I think that was very hard. But, you don't really have time to I mean, like, we don't really have time to mourn because you're just trying to figure out what you can do for your child, so you're just moving quickly, finding resources, like, and nighttime was the hardest. I think that's when we would. She had the other side effect of Opsoclonus-Myoclonus syndrome is it affects the child's ability to sleep because Opsoclonus is the eye movements and myoclonus is the jerks, the muscle jerks. So at nighttime, she couldn't sleep on her own anymore because her legs would just jerk and she would wake up and she would be very upset. So one of us had to hold her all through the night so that she would sleep, so that every time her body jerked, we would hold her so she wouldn't wake up. So one of us would be holding her, the other person would be messaging people or researching online or doing the dishes and so it was very lonely because my husband and I had to kind of be separate, one to take care of her, one to kind of do the research. And yeah, we didn't know if she would, like, what was happening. So that was very scary, especially when she loved blueberries, as a baby, and I put a bowl of blueberries in front of her, and she couldn't even move her arm to take the blueberries, and she just started crying because she couldn't eat. She knew she couldn't eat, and I had to feed her baby cereal, and that was really tough. Um, but, uh, so yeah, I mean, we wouldn't accept this was it for an answer, right? Like, we had to figure out what was going on, so.
How did you process hearing the word cancer on top of everything you were already facing?
Before we got the Opsoclonus-Myoclonus diagnosis, they were checking to see if maybe it was some sort of like, can't remember what it's called, but it's like a toxicity based on like exposure to cat feces, or was it a result of like some sort of viral infection? Was it like Guillain-Barré type thing? And she was a COVID baby, so she was obviously very protected through that. We think she may have gotten COVID when she was like 6 months old. We don't know because there weren't any tests at that time. Um, so we kept kind of thinking like, is that why she got this? Is it because she didn't get any exposure because she was in a bubble the whole time? Did we do something wrong? Did we let her pet a cat? Like we just were kind of blaming ourselves. Like, what did we do that made her become like this? And so, in a way, when we got the diagnosis and then we heard neuroblastoma, it gave us an opportunity to not blame ourselves because we said, oh, it was the cancer. It wasn't anything we did. It wasn't because we let her touch a cat or, like we didn't take care of her properly. It's out of our control. It was cancer, and the cancer led to this. But yeah, there are other causes for OMS. Like a lot of common causes are like a flu or some other viral infection. Sometimes leads to opsoclonus because it triggers the immune system, and then the immune system kind of goes crazy. But in like 50 to 80% of cases, it's usually a tumor somewhere, and the tumor triggers the immune response, and the immune response just kind of goes haywire. Um, so, it was a shock, it was scary, but it almost felt like, okay, now we have a reason and now we can treat her. And so it almost made us feel a little bit better. I don't know how to say that, but we were more relieved when we didn't blame ourselves anymore.
What are the unanswered questions around Opsoclonus-Myoclonus Ataxia Syndrome and neuroblastoma that you would like researchers to address?
Um, I think one of the big questions I always ask is not everybody that has a neuroblastoma, not every child that has a neuroblastoma gets OMS. A lot of times getting OMS means finding the tumor sooner because neuroblastoma is very aggressive. So I think one of the questions is like why some children and not others get OMS. Um, how do you cure it? There's no cure. So you could get a relapse and it could happen again. Um, and then I think the different treatments, I think like what treatment is best and, why are some children getting better and other children are not getting better? I think that's a big question as well. Um, and then like, I think the biggest other question is which parts of the brain are affected because, when they're young and or not young, when they're first, they in the acute phase, obviously you lose the ability to walk, you can't talk, you can't swallow, like all your motor functions are affected. But then once you start to get treated and you get your functions back again, most kids start walking again and they're able to talk again. But a lot of children, as they get older, they get diagnosed with autism or attention deficit disorder, or like, other kinds of, lots of children get diagnosed with anxiety. So I'm curious. And then a lot of children have issues with sleep, so they have to take sleep medication. So I'd really love to know which parts of the brain are affected so that we can kind of predict, okay, what else do we have to take care of for her in the future? Like when she's 7, what's going to happen? When she's 12, what's going to happen? When she's 15, what's going to happen? So I think that kind of long-term studies would be great. And also just understanding the development of the brain a little bit more too.
Did you connect with other Opsoclonus-Myoclonus Ataxia Syndrome or neuroblastoma families? And how did that help you understand Amara's experience?
There's a Facebook group that I connected to right away of other families, and because it's so rare, there's only about 200 families in North America. So the Facebook group kind of connects everybody around the world, and there are a few um, doctors, physicians, and researchers around the world that are now doing a lot of research in this area. and uh, also seeing a lot of patients in this area. They're the experts. And so now we have a group of physicians that are doing research that come together every 2 years. There's a foundation called the OMS Life Foundation that was started by the grandfather of a person with OMS as well. And then there's a foundation in the UK as well that was started by somebody that knew somebody with OMS. And so I think we're all now starting to come together. We meet regularly, we connect. I'm connected to some of the other families, and we talk about our experiences, like what was different about your case and what was, and I'm hopeful that, these researchers, these physicians are doing a lot of great work. There's a lot of really good research happening, and I think more and more attention is getting put on the cause. It's still an ultra rare disease. So the biggest obstacle is we need funding to do more research. We need a lot more funding to do research. Um, so it's happening slowly, but I think it's moving in that direction where everybody's asking the same questions, and um, soon, hopefully, we'll have some more answers.
What is Amara's current health and progress?
So she was diagnosed at 18 months. She was in treatment until she was 3. And that was like every month we would go, every 4 weeks, we would go into the hospital and stay there for 2 days and get all the infusions. And then by 3.5, she was off of treatment. We were still doing her MRIs every quarter. And she'd have to get sedated for the MRIs just to see if there's any tumor recurrence. And now she will be 7 next month, and she's talking. She never stops talking. She is running and jumping. She played soccer last year. She played basketball. She's a very happy child. She knows that she has OMS. She knows what happened to her. She knows she had a tumor. She has a scar. She's very proud of her scar. She says she's strong because of her scar, and she's strong because of OMS. And she says because she had OMS, she can do anything because she's the strongest. So she's doing really well, and she is larger than life. Like, she's very happy to be alive and healthy, and she's the big sister now, and she is just a very sassy, loud, feisty, strong girl.
How have you learned to live with the uncertainty of good days, setbacks, and the possibility of symptoms returning?
Is hard. A lot of times we find ourselves asking, is this just normal behavior, or is this because of what she went through? Like, is she acting this way? Is she having a tantrum because of OMS? Or is it because she's just having a tantrum? When she gets sick and she starts to get a little bit more irritable or lose her balance, we worry that, symptoms are coming back, but a lot of times it's because her immune system is overworked and tired. And so a lot of times when she gets sick often. She's starting to get better, but if she gets a cold, then she'll get another cold right away, and her body gets really tired and she gets very irritable. And so I think part of it is just having more patience. Um, we also have very high expectations for her. We want her to be as normal as ever, but I also think that we have to be more compassionate, that she's working really hard inside her own brain and she's doing the best that she can. And she'll even say that to me sometimes. I'll say, Amara, you knew this yesterday. Why don't you know this today? And she'll say, I'm working hard, Mama, and I'm doing the best I can with my brain. And it's true. Like somebody said once, like a neuropsychologist, that OMS kids are consistently inconsistent, which means that how they are one day is very different from how they are the next day. And so we just have to trust that the children are doing the best that they can and push them and never stop expecting the most for them, but also not being disappointed if their journey looks a little bit different than other children. And I think in terms of the uncertainty of the future, my husband and I keep reminding ourselves, like, we don't know what the future holds, even if our kid never got sick. Nobody knows what the future holds for their children. Um, and we just have to remember that we cannot be worried about what might happen 2 years from now and not be happy for how she is now. It's really hard because we have our own trauma. We have our own, like, post-traumatic stress disorder from all the medical trauma of the hospital and all of that. But we have to just remind ourselves that we have to be happy now because we have this amazing girl that is alive and healthy, and we just have to be happy for that and not worry about what might happen in the future.
When Amara was first diagnosed, did your understanding of what really matters in life change?
World just became so small. The only thing that mattered was her and just being there for her and being a mom, and nothing else mattered. Like, it was just, I knew my role was to just be her support and be her advocate and fight with whoever I needed to fight to get answers, um, and trust that everybody was working for her benefit. Um, but yeah, it still does. I think life gets complicated for everybody, and sometimes we'll get frustrated about things, and we'll remind ourselves like we already dealt with the hardest thing, you know? Um, so yeah, I mean, nothing else matters other than your health and your loved ones. And life is like, without health, there is no life, in a way. So yeah, for sure.
With your background in public health, did becoming the mother of a seriously ill child change the way you understood the healthcare system?
Yes, yes and no. So in one way, I think my public health background led me to wanting more of the evidence. Like, I really wanted to read all the evidence, read all the journals, any studies that were published about OMAS or neuroblastoma. I started to read all of them, any kind of literature reviews and all of that. So I started to really kind of go into the evidence of, like, what are the best practices, what's worked, what does the prognosis look like. So I went into the data a lot more and was frustrated when there wasn't enough data for a lot of things. But then, ultimately, I think the healthcare system was the one we were in. And um, we had a really great team. So we had the best doctors at UCLA, we had the best doctors at CHLA, Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And we had a whole multidisciplinary team working hard to support Amara. And then when we were in the hospital overnight, we were there for 45 days straight, at the second time when we actually got the diagnosis and the surgery and everything. And we saw other children in the children's ward, and so many children there, and they shouldn't be there. They're children, they should be not in the hospital. And I think that also helped recognize that, like, we were one family, and these doctors are working hard to support all of these families and all of these children. And so just to have a little bit of compassion for the healthcare providers as well, like, they're working hard, but also because of that, they have so many families that they're taking care of. It was important for me to remember, like, hey, this was the dose that we gave last time. This is the evidence that I saw. And I would ask questions to the doctors all the time, like, hey, I read this study. Have you seen this study? What do you think about this study? Is this a treatment option we could try? Um, that's probably what the public health is. And my husband was the opposite. He said, I don't want to know the data if it's negative. Only tell me the things that are positive because I need to have hope. And if you tell me things like, 70% of children don't get better or something, I'm not going to be able to survive. So don't do anything to affect my hope. You go study the evidence and you talk to the doctors about it. But for me, I just need to believe and be a dad. So I think, yeah, for me, it was like I needed to be a mom, but I also couldn't help it. Like, I wanted to know. I wanted to know. I was every night, I wasn't sleeping. I was just reading every article I could get, about it. So
Based on both your personal experience and your public health background, what changes would you like to see in the healthcare system for families navigating rare diseases?
that's a great question. I mean, I think record keeping, like, there were times when we had to repeat the same story over and over and over again to a new provider because every time somebody new would come and they wanted to learn, and it was very traumatic to have to answer the same questions. When did she get sick? What happened? What were her first symptoms? And for us, it was trauma, right? So to keep talking about it was really hard. So if there was a way that it was just there and people could read it before they came and ask questions that were more relevant to what they wanted to know instead of having us tell the story all over again every single time. That was one. And then there were a lot of mistakes made because it was a new disease for a lot of doctors. They were not familiar with it. So there wasn't a proper protocol about a lot of things. So we really had to be the ones to make the calls, connect the doctors together, say, hey, can you please talk to this doctor and make sure that you guys are in agreement? So I think if there was some way that there was like a rare disease advocate that could support the families, because instead of caring for the child and being there as a parent, we had to do all this advocacy work and it was very, very tiring. And so I think rare disease families are trying to find out the information and connect to a community. So having anybody that could be a support, um, that was really good at navigating the healthcare system and reminding us like, now you need to do this, reminding you like, hey, you have this upcoming appointment, here are the questions, whatever that might be, just some sort of a partner in the process. I think that would be great. The OMS community now, a lot of us who have come out of the dark side and are on the other side where our kids are doing better, we do that. Every time there's a new family member that's diagnosed or a new family that's entered the OMS world, one of us will reach out and we'll say, we're here, text us anytime, ask us any questions. Like I'll meet with any mom or dad or whoever wants to ask questions about Amara's story because I remember how lonely it was. And all I wanted was to talk to somebody that could just understand what I was going through because none of my friends, they were there, but they couldn't understand. So I think some way that parents of young patients could get more support, I think would be helpful.
There was a point when your own late night research led you to Opsoclonus-Myoclonus Ataxia Syndrome. What did that experience teach you about trusting your instincts as a parent?
It's very important to trust your instincts. I've heard this from other parents. The doctor said one thing, but they said, no, I know my child. I mean, at the end of the day, the parents know their child the best. They know if there's something that's different about their child, they see them every day, every night. The doctors see them for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. So I would say, like, absolutely trust your gut. If you feel like something is not right with your child and the doctors are saying everything's okay, trust your gut and push because that instinct, that maternal instinct, that paternal instinct, absolutely. Like when we were sent home and told it's going to get better, just wait. And something was telling me like, no, this is not getting better. This is not going to get better. We cannot just sit at home and wait. It's getting worse. So we said, no, we're not staying at home. We are going back to the hospital because this is wrong. What they said is wrong. So yeah, absolutely. I would say it's very important to do that. And it's very uncomfortable sometimes for families to question a diagnosis or something that a provider says, but the parents are the experts on their child. So it's important.
What are your biggest hopes for Amara now?
Just hope that she never feels like she is held back. Like I just want her to experience life and feel like she's overcome the worst thing in the world and that she's so strong and that she can do whatever she wants in the world. And I want her to connect with other OMS kids and feel that sense of community and feel like it's important for her to be the messenger. She's met some kids that are older now and they are really strong advocates for the disease. And I want Amara to be that too and to share her story and feel proud of her story and help others as well.